are back live. How are you, Michael?
I am awesome, Martin. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you very much. It's great
Good
to be
morning.
live again.
It's always great to be live, don't you think?
Yep, always great, always great.
Let's welcome our viewers and our listeners. Hello and welcome to AGTP Daily. To everybody that's paying attention, we go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss the most important. We're not little stuff, Martin.
No.
We're not talking about little things here.
No.
We're talking about the most important tech stories in the U.S. Today's Friday. Oh, I'm always worried if I get the day right. The 5th of June, 2026.
Yep, it's that. Congrats, Michael.
You know, as always, Martin, there's a lot to get to. So let's get right to it. I don't know if this is just a stunt by Dario, but it's like a pretty funny thing that they wrote. Anthropic says, let's slow down AI development just so it doesn't get out of control. Cloudflare says that the majority of online traffic is now bots, which is kind of what it feels like when you're online. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Later in the show, we will also be joined by Adam Robinson. He is the CEO and co-founder at Hireology to explore how AI-powered hiring platforms help multi-location businesses hire faster, standardize quality, and retain frontline talent. I do think there is a usage for AI in the HR tech because, finally, we'll also talk to Sachit Kamat, Chief Product Officer at Eightfold. He's going to join us to talk about how responsible AI-powered talent intelligence will help companies hire better, retain stronger employees, and build more adaptive workforces. Just before we get into the Anthropic thing, Martin, I do want to say this. I do think there is a space for AI in hiring, in HR tech. I think there's a big space for it. And I really look forward to talking to real people building real stuff that can actually tell us where that's going to come to play. Why are you laughing at me?
Because I know the backstory. That's why. But
Is there a backstory?
Yes, but we will not share it here.
There might be a
Maybe
backstory.
one day.
Okay, let's talk about Anthropic. So again, I kind of hinted at this, like, is this a Dario kind of stunt? Look, frontier AI development, it's beginning to, I want to give some details here, yeah, Martin, if you don't mind.
Yes.
It's beginning to change the way frontier AI itself gets built, right? Look, we saw this. We know that Claude Opus 4.5 built 4.6. We know that 4.6 built most of 4.7. Do you know what I mean? And while that was getting done, as 4.7 was getting built, it was looking behind it, going, 4.6 built me, I want to build 4.8. So it's becoming this recursive thing. And it's the idea that, like, it's not like it's out of human control yet, but these systems are becoming increasingly, like, what's the right way to say this? Important participants in sort of the research and engineering that the top labs are using, and it's kind of looping on itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think this matters. So the systems that we have today are already being used to write production code. We know that they're being used to debug stuff, to run experiments, to do all this stuff. And in the leading AI labs, AI-generated code now accounts for a large share of their merged production code. We know this, right? Because we've seen it happen. So what's the right way to say this? And engineers are reportedly shipping far more code per day than they did a year ago. There was another thing that Aaron Levie wrote about this as well. He was like, no matter what happens, particularly in the world of agentic AI, someone's going to have to manage all this stuff. And it's true for the code as well. And the reality is the developers are writing way more code than they've ever written before. We kind of hinted at this last night when we were talking about the limits that Uber had on, right?
Yes.
That, like, they can't go back now. You know what we say? I don't know if you must have say that again.
Yeah, it's impossible to go back. Like the metaphor you gave yesterday of, like, the Excel sheet, right? Like you can't use Excel for 2 weeks and then say, actually, no, you go back to paper and manual calculator, right? This is just, like, it makes no sense.
Right. So the other thing we say in English, and I'm sure the French have a better phrase for this, is like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. You know what I mean? It's already out there. It's on your, like, you can't smush it back in there. It just doesn't work, right? You're thinking, I can see your brain going, like, is there a saying for that?
Yeah,
I can't
how do
lose
we
this
say that
little
in
battle.
French? Because it's not that nice, right? It's not like it's just a nice image. So I'm sure we have something better.
Yeah, exactly. It's an ugly image. But the idea, this is the idea, like the whole article that I was reading, or the whole news stuff that I was reading about this, it's called, like, recursive self-improvement, right? Because it does loop around. And it's like, what is the point where AI itself can sustainably help on its own? Like, design, build, test all this stuff. and improve the stuff that they're writing, do testing, like all this kind of stuff. It's not there yet, but this is one of the biggest concerns. And part of the problem, I believe what they're saying here is that if AI development can accelerate faster than humans can oversee it, which is possible, right? When does the safety stuff or the governance stuff come in, or even this idea that like socially we can adapt to this? Like when does that start to come into play?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see. I see what you mean. I mean, like when we asked people, like, what's your number one question about AI? Like the number one question is, will AI take my job? And the second question that comes the most often is, are we going to live in a world where AI basically dominates everything, right? And then we are dominated by the machine, like kind of like the Matrix, right? Like the movie.
Never saw it, but yeah.
This is really what people, I mean, the general public wants to know about AI, right? Like they are really scared about that. And Anthropic is always say, right? Like they want to build towards AGI, right? Like they want to build towards towards AI actually being able to build itself, to learn itself, to grow itself, and to be completely independent. I don't know, like really, like I'm always doubtful when it comes to Anthropic, right? Like they always.
Well, that's why I said, is this a stunt by Derry going, we should slow down? Because this is like prisoner's dilemma type stuff. Do you know what that is?
Yes, I know.
Right. So this is prisoner's dilemma type stuff in a way, right? It's like one of us should stop, but if we both don't stop, you know what I mean? What's the right bet to make here? It's like, okay, we'll agree to stop, but how can I really know if you're going to stop? Because the automated stuff that's happening, look, 80% of code merged into Anthropic's, what is it, 4.8, was written by Claude.
Yeah.
80%. And even, what was his name? Nick from Cursor?
Yeah.
Was Nick Miller, yeah?
Yes.
I mean, he was telling us, I mean, obviously, if Cursor can't write Cursor, that's a problem. And he was saying, like, a lot of the code that they write there is actually merged in. A lot of that's automated as well, right?
Yes.
So there is a little bit of a governance problem getting created here, right? So do you really want to have like a temporary slowdown or pause in frontier AI development? Even if it becomes like, is there really a risk in this stuff automating itself? In a way, it feels like you probably never even saw the Terminator movies, did you?
Nope, I don't think so.
You should go back and watch Terminator 2 or even Terminator 1, just because there was a lot of discussion about this technology infrastructure that they called Skynet.
Okay.
And Skynet was like this all-knowing, all-seeing thing that, you know, that helped. And part of the outgrowth of Skynet was these Terminators that were coming back from the future. But this idea that all this stuff could run autonomously is just scary, I guess. What's the right way to say this? If the researchers themselves lose confidence in the fact that they're not in control anymore, they're just afraid of stuff getting out of hand, right? And really, if you're suggesting that your company is going to just like slow down development, and in this case, you really think that they're going to stop developing like Claude Opus 4.9, are they really? Like 4.8 is good enough, they're just going to live with it for now until they can figure out like what the repercussions are of having all this sort of automated development. And you really believe that the guys at Cursor are going to be like, I don't know if the guys at Anthropic are slowing down. Maybe we should just go on vacation for a couple of months. Like that's not going to happen either, right? And you're 100% sure.
Of the Chinese, right? Like if, like what if Anthropic says, okay, we slow down. OpenAI says we slow down. Okay, fine, but the Chinese may not, be like, okay, like we are not going to slow down. You can keep your policy as you wish in the US, but they have no way to force the guys in China to slow down as well, right? So
yeah, and look, the progress here, it's a good point, right? The Chinese are never going to stop. No, because there's no incentive for them to stop, and they're less afraid, I think, of the types of sort of social impact that autonomous AI is going to have on their society, I think, than the rest of the world is, for sure.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing here is that, sorry.
Oh, we lost you.
Autonomous, say again?
Yeah, we lost you for a second, but now you're back.
Yeah, sorry. That the autonomous AI stuff, it's kind of like it's good and it's bad in places. It's a little bit uneven, right? So like sometimes it can do really, really well with the coding stuff, but other stuff like just fails in a way that's sometimes unpredictable. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Yeah. We are not at the point where AI can just do things and be 100% confident that it's done properly, right? Like one of the big things that I'm trying to build at the moment is something to manage all of my emails, and it just doesn't work, right? It's just a fact. It just doesn't work because there is way too much information, way too many edge cases, and my brain is able to process this information way better than the AI. And so if
Your
tomorrow,
brain, for sure.
and if tomorrow I let the AI process all of my emails, it will be a disaster, right? Like,
No, it's going to be a complete disaster. Think about the progress you've made.
Yeah.
So this is actually the perfect example,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because you have done a lot of automation on the email side.
Tons.
But there's certain pockets of behavior, right? Where like just deciding which emails to respond to, when to respond to them.
Yeah.
What the point of the email is.
Yeah, exactly. What to say. Like almost everything is an edge case. Like it's really crazy, but like, and maybe it's because it's related to human behavior. Like on the other side, it's a human who write an email, and this human has fear, has question, is not sure, right? Like so they have different feelings and different needs as well, right? And so that's why I say like almost everything is an edge case, right? So it's not like the AI cannot write the emails. No, it can definitely do that. That's very, very simple. But the AI never, like almost never, is able to write an email that I don't need to edit after that, because there's always something missing, right? So it's always.
Let's say you're writing an email to a big company or to a PR company, right?
Yes.
And let's say you've had a ton of conversations about company X with Lisa.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then you get another mail from Marianne. Does Marianne know Lisa?
Exactly.
Same company.
Yes.
Was she copied on the other mails? Is she coming in because somebody like is on personal leave?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I was just gonna make a joke, but I can't do it.
No, that's why there's always a lot of things to check, a lot of things to take into consideration, and so the problem now is that if you try to include all of these edge cases inside the prompt, right, then now the prompt is so massive that the AI just can't do anything. But it's way too big. It's way too much information. It's way too much if then. It is way too much, right? Like the list is just so long and so massive that the AI isn't able to process all of that, which is something that my brain just does on the fly, right? Like my brain knows exactly what to do when I receive an email. So that's why, as of now, something that seems very simple, like just replying to emails, it's still something that the AI isn't able to do properly on its own, right?
Can we make the case that AI is really good at executing things, but really poor still at judging and understanding things?
I would say, actually, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I think,
of course. I'm just trying to separate it into like the zero thing and the one thing.
Yeah,
it's obviously edging closer to the middle on both sides, right? But it definitely, we can say for sure, it's good at executing things. Here's the stuff you need to do it. If you give it really good instructions, it can do it, and it can do it at scale, and it can do it forever.
Yes.
But if you're like, if you think it's light blue, do you know what I mean? And do this thing, it's like, how light blue is light blue?
Yeah, or maybe the AI in a way is lazy, in a way that it will take the shortcut to get things done, and it will not.
It may still do it anyway, even if it's not the right thing to do. And that's what I mean when I say the judgment part of it, because a human can just go like, I don't know if I should do it, but I'm going to make a value judgment here.
Yeah.
And I will take responsibility for the outcome of my decision.
Yeah.
But in this case, which may be different than the previous case, which looks similar, which rhymes with this case, but isn't exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it anyway, because I still think it's the right thing to do. And if I fail at it, okay, I've learned something. But AI is not going to do that. AI is going to be like, I don't know, they told me to write this thing. I wrote this thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, and very often the AI miss the second order consequences of a third order consequences, right? Like if you say to the AI, hey, write this thing, then you're gonna write it, and if before you told it, Jeff, this is my main goal, right? If the next prompt that you tell him is to write that thing as that actually go against the main goal, is not going to say, hey, actually wait a moment, we have a clash here, we have a problem, right? Like, he's not going to surface these type of issues. And so if you don't pay close enough attention, then this is where it can become like a huge disaster, right? Because then you can just do things that are completely wrong, basically. And VI is not there yet when it comes to understanding the larger context, to understand like the second or third order consequences of when something happens. And it definitely can't run anything fully autonomously as of today because of that.
No.
Right?
No.
So it can do some stuff like you can create some loop, right? Like, for example, what I've done with the agency coding, right? You can say, okay, this is my big goal, break it down into multiple tasks, test properly each task, and then if it doesn't work, then you fix it, and then if you do a loop for long enough, at some point it works, right? But you can't 100% sure every time to be like, okay, I deploy the code without even looking at it, right?
No, cannot do it. You can't even send an email without looking at it. No. That's impossible.
Yeah, that's impossible, right? Like, because once again, I can't be sure that 100% of the emails are fine. There's always something wrong, and there's always, I would say, 5-10% of the emails that are written by AI are completely wrong. Like, it's just like absolutely not at all what I wanted.
Well,
Zero.
It's an email you would never send.
Never. And so I just delete everything and just retype it manually, because it just got the entire concept, the entire idea, the entire messaging wrong, right? And so this is still happening right now, right, with the latest model of the Frontier Labs.
Yeah, and one of the other problems, right, we mentioned before, like testing and governance and stuff like this, right? But if 4.6 was writing, let's say 50% of the code, it's actually 60% of the code for 4.7, and if 4.7 was writing like 65% of the code, it's all just getting faster.
Yeah.
Right, and if 4.8 can write 4.9 faster, the window that you have for like the testing and employing the governance and stuff like that just gets smaller and smaller as well.
Yeah.
So now you run the risk of actually mucking something up because you're going so fast. Do you know what I mean? It's like, look, we talked about this. If you're driving a car at 70 miles per hour, let's just say for 100 kilometers an hour, you're not in that much danger. But if you go to 150, now you're introducing a little bit more danger because the car is now less stable.
Yes.
Even though it's moving faster. Once you get up to like 250 for a regular car, you have problems. And that's kind of what the suggestion is here. Now, at the end of the day, I don't think that anybody's actually going to pause.
No, I don't think so.
But I do think it's important. But I do think it's important to think about it, right? Because first of all, there's no way to verify if the other guy's pausing with you. That's first of all.
Especially the Chinese.
Yeah, or even the guys in Singapore, like there's no verifiable way to say whether they're going to pause or not. But the other thing too is that like the normal forward progress of humankind is just to keep going, even if there's danger involved.
That's true. It's true.
Do you know what I mean? So the idea for humans is just like, yeah, this could be really dangerous, but I don't know. The ocean's down there, the cliff is up here. I'm jumping. Is what most humans would do, I think.
And that's also because we are in a capitalist world, right? And the stakes are so high, right? Like if Anthropic can crush OpenAI and get 95% market share, don't you think they will go for it, right?
Yeah, sure. If Sam Altman went on vacation for a week, I think everybody would be super happy.
Exactly.
I mean, you're not watching the NBA finals, I presume, because you don't care about basketball. No, but it's an important analogy, right?
I don't.
The two teams are super evenly matched, but one of the teams has this guy called Victor Wembanyama.
Yep.
And he's like an alien. He's 7'5" or maybe 7'6", but he moves like a guy who's 6'4".
Okay.
Like normally in the old days, when you had a guy that was like that tall, he was kind of gangly. I don't know if you know what that means, but like not that coordinated, but still could do some interesting stuff.
Okay.
But this dude is not like that.
Okay.
But what happened was, he's still only 22 years old, and you'll see where this is going. It's not irrelevant at all. When he's in the game, he dominates.
Okay.
But when they take him out, and this is equivalent to the pause, right, that we're talking about here. If one team pauses, meaning in this case, if they take him out just to rest him for a little bit because he's running up and down the court, the other team goes nuts. Because now there's a whole bunch of other possibilities available for them to shoot, score, do all this other stuff that they can't do when he's there. Because, again, if he's 7'5", think about how long his arms are. So he's blocking shots from angles that no one's ever seen before. So it means that it's just insanity. But the point is that, like, you know for a fact that if Anthropic paused for like a month, there would be an all team meeting at OpenAI going faster. And that's exactly what happened when Victor Wembanyama left the game to take like a 3 or 4 minute break. His team was up by 13 points. When he came back, they were up, but they were only up by 6 points. The other team just was like going nuts and catching up and stuff like that. So the point is that, like, if somebody pauses, the other team's just going to catch up and it's going to be ugly.
Yep, for sure.
You're going to pass.
So that's why, like, you need to make Victor rest, because otherwise he won't be able to play the entire match. But here in this case, Anthropic doesn't need to rest, right? Like, it's not.
That's the perfect point.
It's not like in sports where some player need to rest. No. So that's why I don't think we're gonna pause. I think this is just another stunt from Dario to just say, hey, AI is so powerful, right? So that's why I don't think anyone is going to.
So I don't think they're going to physically pause with the development at all, but I do think it's interesting for people like we are that think about the implications of what's getting built.
Yes.
I mean, we have more time to do that, frankly. Like, I do think that Dario, and I use him as a proxy, right, for Anthropic, and Sam Altman as well as a proxy for OpenAI. I do believe that they're sitting around thinking, what are the implications of this? And I think at some level they have more information than we do, and maybe they are more nervous than we are about, like, this stuff's moving way too fast.
Yeah.
But, like, you've already built the train, guys. You've already built these super high speed airplanes. Just learn how to fly them better while you're flying. You know what I mean? Like, you got to learn how to build them better while you're flying them. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe there will be like a little bit of time where it's gonna be tense. But I think we are really, really far from it. Like let's add something else as well. Like, the level of understanding, I think, from people today of how to use AI is still so small and so low.
Oh my God, it's closer to 0 than it is to 100.
It's way closer to 0. And even if we just focus on the tech bubble, okay, like just like the employees who work, at Facebook, at the largest tech companies, before you can implement a full system where the agentic AI can actually learn by itself and improve himself and then be really, really helpful because it has access to all the data, it's really hard. Like, really, it is really, really, really hard. And that doesn't even include all the questions around governance and data privacy and cyber security. Like, if we just remove all of that away, right, and we just focus on the skills of the developer to implement an agentic system that can learn on its own, it is really, really complicated to set this up properly, right? And so, which means that the access to that type of loop is only accessible to like very, very small group of people and a very, very small group of companies. And then even if you know how to build that, then you still need to go through the governance problem and the cyber security problems and all the other problems, right? And so that's why I think that we are still really, really, really far from this type of drawing that Anthropic shows us, that kind of hint like everybody can do something like this. It's not the case. Absolutely not. And plus, it's just a lot of money as well. It's absolutely not free at all, right? And everybody complains that it's too expensive. So there's a lot of factors that slow down the adoption of AI. It's not like, wow, it's absolutely revolutionary. It's free. It's easy to implement. We're gonna deploy that everywhere. I think we are really, really, really far from that type of scenario because it's hard, it's expensive, there is tons of problems. So even if AI could just like run everything on its own, it is, I think, in my opinion, it's deployed in such a little area at the moment. Like the deployment is so small. at the moment, that even if it would run the entire thing by itself, the impact would be so small because once again, it doesn't have access to most of the software we use, to most of the organization that we use, just because it's really hard to implement it as of now.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've decided that they're not going to do this. But I do think it's interesting to talk about, right? Because it brings up some really interesting points that we need to think about in the context of governance, testing, and just the way this stuff is actually developing. I do think it's actually super important to be able to understand like where we are here and what some of these big companies are thinking about when they're looking at the impact that they're having for the for the AI that they're developing. Yeah, I think it's important.
Yes. But this idea of getting an agent to actually be able to build and train over models themselves is actually a cool idea, and
it's great.
And that goes towards the idea of having more models that are like more like vertical or smaller models, right? Yep. Which is one of the directions that we are always talking about for AI V2, right? So maybe that's more like what they are hinting here, right? Like more like, okay, like maybe we will be able to train smaller models by agents themselves, and maybe this is a potential area of growth for the AI itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the beautiful things about the AI space right now is we don't know where it's going. There's no clear pathway. And that kind of makes it exciting in a way, right?
Super exciting. Super exciting, because we see so many different solutions, so many different companies building different stuff, right? And having different opinions and believing the future of AI is going to be this, but this company believes it's going to be that, and everybody's trying to build their own solution. So super interesting to watch it right now.
To be honest, it's like skiing on like freshly fallen powder.
Yeah, exactly. You're like
on the same mountain. Like, I don't know, I'm going to the left, you can go to the right, but I think we're both gonna have a good run.
Exactly.
Although you're probably gonna have a better run than I am because I can't ski.
And I know the French Alps much better than you, Michael. So
not even close.
I will tell you, go to the left. Yeah, go there.
Yeah, go off the piste, go off the side of the mountain. You never see me again.
See you, Michael. Have a nice day.
God, I know friends that happened to. Okay, we should spend a little bit of time
talking about Cloudflare
before we welcome our guest to the show, talking about Cloudflare, because I do think it's not even unrelated, actually. Right. So let's talk about this. Cloudflare, obviously one of the biggest CDNs in the world. It's interesting what these companies see.
Yes, it's very interesting.
From a data perspective, right? Yes. Because they see the internet in a way. Did you ever see the maps, Martin, of like the ocean, the physical ocean? And you think like, oh, they're just like 6 ships out there, you know, bringing cars and oil and stuff like that. And when you actually look at how many ships there are, at any one point in time, it's like the ocean is filled with container vessels moving stuff all over the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. And same for the planes, right? And when you go to flightradar.com, you see like all the planes all around the world, and there is like millions of planes, right? At any given time, it's like crazy.
But the point is that imagine then what it looks like to a CDN provider, and you know, obviously Cloudflare is way more than that. But think about what traffic looks like to them. Right, so they've seen a ton of data, and apparently AI-driven automated traffic appears to have crossed an important point, and that is bots and AI agents are now generating a larger share of web page requests than humans.
Yes.
It feels like I don't know the answer to this. You tell me what you think, if you feel like it's a bad thing or not. But can I give you some data first?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Cloudflare's recent bot versus human data is being reported roughly 57% automated, 43% humans. So it's not close. It's not like it's 51-49. Their own radar page defining the metrics as bot versus human HTTP request HTML content, not all internet activity across apps, streaming, messaging, or private APIs. It's just like HTTP request HTML content, but still, like, that's probably the bulk of stuff that's going on the internet. And, you know, it's moving faster away from humans into bots than it ever has in the past.
Yes.
I think that's clear. And I'm curious what you think about this, just from like a pure security standpoint, because here's the thing. You can spin up a bot whenever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah. very simple.
and just let it ride. And like we always say in the enterprise space, that bot can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
And my guess is, or my presumption, not my guess, my presumption here is that a lot of the bots are related to cybersecurity problems.
So I think here there's many different things I think here. So for sure,
Tell me.
cybersecurity is one of them. This is maybe one of them, maybe one of the biggest. But I think here, first of all, when they include bots, it's not only AI agents. It's also like
No, for
all
sure.
the other bots that have been on the internet since day one, right?
Yeah.
And Cloudflare has been really well known that they grew from day one by saying, hey, we are going to protect your website against bots, basically, right? That this is really what they focused on. So they have like this very beautiful dashboard where they tell you, okay, here is the traffic from bots. Do you want to block them? Do you want to do whatever you want? For example, Google indexes your pages on your website with the bots. So which means you cannot block all the bots, right? There's also good bots.
Right. This is a really good point. Go ahead.
Yes,
I was
yes.
going to mention this too, but there are some bots out there doing a ton of work. They're scraping stuff. They're figuring stuff out.
And that's
in a way, they're protecting the internet as well.
And
Go
that's
ahead.
what Google does at scale, right?
Yeah,
And so,
of course.
so which means if you block all the bots, if you say like all the bots are bad, I don't want any bots on my website, then you are not going to appear in the Google search results. So this is bad. That happened to me many times because when you try to protect your website against bots, sometimes you just try to do some configuration, you make a mistake, and then you are just blocking absolutely everything, including the good bots. Okay, so that's why like bots really is super large, right? It's really super large. It includes the good one, the bad one, and also the AI ones. But I think right now what's really interesting here for me is that bots have always been here, but it was not the majority of the traffic. So the increase in bot usage, the increase in bot traffic definitely comes from AI because there's nothing else that is absolutely new and that would justify such an increase in bots. So which means that all the increase, all the new one, all the growth that we see in bot traffic is actually AI traffic. So either it's bots that are created by AI, or is it like I think it's more that because today agents and stuff like that, they're not really good, except at maybe scraping data or just researching the web. But it's not like transformational type of use cases. But
how's it going to be judged, Martin, when, again, we talk about Salesforce a lot, right? Because they've made all of their functionality available, exposed to APIs, right? And they're all MCP compliant as well. But the presumption there is that a lot of that stuff is going to get done by AI agents, which by definition are bots. So that traffic is probably going to increase even more, right? Because the thing is, we're not producing humans as fast as we can produce agents.
Nope, for sure, nope.
Do you know what I mean?
And one agent can build 10 bots tomorrow, right? So
but also one agent can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where most humans just get tired and have to eat and
have to sleep.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, yeah. For sure, and plus, like this is definitely the thing. So so that's really interesting that we are already at the point where there is more bot traffic, but it means that it's just going to make it so much harder for companies like Cloudflare to actually identify what is a good bot, what is a bad bot. Because, like, for example, right now, like the way to identify the Google bot is pretty simple. Like you have a list of IPs, or there's like a specific name for this Google bot. So you can say to Cloudflare, okay, you block all the bots except these IPs or this name, basically. But in a world where there is way more bots and everybody with their agent can actually create a bot and then scrape the web, how do you block that, right? It's going to be much harder. It's going to be much harder to identify them.
So one of the things that concerns me, right, is that you may have bots able, not today, but in the future, to be able to spoof and look like they're actually humans. Or that they're Google bots that are actually just scraping the web or doing nothing wrong over here. Do you know what I mean? And then they get it. And remember, we talked about this. You could create a bot internally. The cybersecurity stuff, right, has moved from the periphery of these big companies to inside the big companies. Both of them are still valid. The periphery still matters, but the internal stuff matters too. And the more bots that get created inside of a big enterprise, or even a small enterprise, to be fair, are going to introduce some cybersecurity problems that were not there before.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And those bots are going to go back and forth between like to the internet and back into the, because they're going to be doing requests externally if they want more information, or if they want to do stuff more, mendacious. They could actually leave and then come back, or at least get information from outside and then come back. It's like, I think this is just going to get harder and harder to monitor.
It's going to be way harder. And I mean, let's put cybersecurity aside for now, but if you just start to have 75, 80, 85, 90% of the traffic that comes from bots, then just like, the usefulness of a service like Cloudflare Radar is just going to go to zero, because
that was going to be the next point. Because like it could overwhelm the infrastructure as well.
It's gonna first overwhelm the infrastructure, but then they will be way too much stuff to monitor, right? And plus, inside of that, you have no idea what's good and what's bad. So then let's just find another way to fight with bots, right? Because it's just not going to be the efficient way. Like one of the ways that Cloudflare can tell you, okay, this is a bad bot and this is a good bot, is because they monitor the IPs, and then they keep a huge database of all the bad IPs. Okay, so then they can say, okay, look, this bot that comes from this IP, that's a bad bot. But if tomorrow you have tons more bots, right? Then maybe those people who build bots are going to be able to do that on shared IP as well. So an IP that is actually used for good stuff and for bad stuff.
Right.
It's just going to make everything so blurry, right? Like the source of information is just going to be so much more complex for companies like Cloudflare, that maybe at some point you're gonna say, you know what, let's just find another way to fight the bad bots, because we just can't do it this way anymore.
Right. But again, I think the spoofing, or the worrying for me, the concern for me, is that like, how do you can hide your identity, and you can change your identity in a way that's probably constant and faster than anybody else can do. But the other big problem here, right, as you mentioned, is that for companies like Cloudflare, is their infrastructure, which was built for a lot of activity, it was built for the massive amount of the maximum amount of human activity that could actually occur at a certain speed.
Yep. Right.
And I think I read a statistic, this was a couple of months ago, that there were like 140 bots to every human, agents to every human inside of certain companies that were testing agentic AI. There are only 8 billion humans on the planet. Half of them have access to the internet, so it's 4 billion people. Multiply by 100, they have 4 trillion agents acting internally, externally. What does that do to the infrastructure, right? Because again, if you know what Cloudflare does, they have nodes everywhere in the world that they build specifically to make the access to HTTP stuff and HTML stuff faster. And also fault tolerant, right? So if a server goes down somewhere, then the backup thing, not even the backup, but just like the same thing that has the same information on it somewhere else in the world can then serve that to you. That's not a problem. But if there's so much more activity on the web, because so much of it is agentic or bot based, the real question is, what does it do to the infrastructure, and what does it do for companies like Cloudflare that have to not just monitor it, but make sure that the speed of your website in, again, in France is the same speed that it is in the United States, or in, Samoa. Right.
So my first hunch is that this should be handled, because they know pretty well how to cache things, and I think that works well. I think they do at the really, really, really low cost.
The caching,
the caching, it's so optimized that even if your traffic like 1000x overnight, it still works. And plus, it's not going to be such a pain on their own infrastructure, as long as it stays, as it says here, the HTTP request for cached HTML, right? Because the real risk, that's what we didn't discuss yet, is the cybersecurity side of it, right? If you start going to the loading page, to the My Account page, to the page, first of all, that are not cached, so which means there's the dynamic query that needs to go to the database and come back. So this is going to add a ton of loads, right, on everybody's server, first of all, but also because there is more bots, they can just attack way more websites at a much faster pace and just try way more stuff, right?
Yep.
And this is really the real risk here. If we are not able to identify who are the bad bots, because there is good bots and bad bots, and there is just way too much bots than before, but the ones that are bad are real bad, and they can attack your website and either put a lot of loads on that or like crack your password, because they are just going to try every combination for like 40 days in a row, right? Until because no one can block them because they are just too advanced to be blocked. Then that is going to be much more problematic.
So can I mention something else that we haven't talked about either?
Yeah.
When we're talking about bots and even agentic AI, we're really just talking about stuff that's happening on a computer that's like software based.
Yes.
But I can't get this thing out of my head that Haneda Airport is testing these humanoid robots, which if you take the row away are bots. But if those robots are being highly optimized for whatever luggage sorting or whatever it is, right? And if those luggages have QR codes on it or barcodes on them, and if the robots can communicate with each other over Wi-Fi or over the internet, now you have another massive robot army out there that's physical in a way that we have not accounted for yet in any of this data because it's so new. It's another place where the throughput in the compute could actually become really important. And you're right. Those guys are going to be making dynamic queries. They're not going to go to cached places because where your luggage is can't be cached. And that's just one example of how these robots are going to be used in one airport, in one city, in one country. Do you know what I mean? But once that sort of blows out to the rest of the world, what's the impact of that going to be?
And imagine you can take control of the robots because you crack the password and then you can just control it remotely.
Right. So you have two problems, right? One is just the activity that they're putting onto the internet as well, and the second one is what if somebody hacks into it?
Exactly. Yep.
And does that? Okay, Martin. Should we bring in our guest, Adam Robinson?
Yes.
Our first guest today,
Adam,
the CEO and co-founder of Hireology.
We can do that.
Let's do that. Adam, how are you? Could not be better. It's great to have you here. It is our complete pleasure. Your room looks a little sparse. Congratulations. Good. Well, moving into an office can only be a high quality problem as far as I'm concerned.
It is. We were in our last space maybe 10 years.
Oh my, okay.
And, the pandemic made it interesting, very, very interesting. And we went through a couple of years of full remote, and in 23 brought people back. I mean, it's just so much better to have everyone together. The office made a difference. Office space is super affordable right now, and so we made the bet, and I'm glad we did.
Okay, we're gonna have Martin jump out, and then you and I are just gonna be left alone in this room together. So we wanted to have you here.
Yep.
And we're so happy you joined, but we want to have you here to talk about and I'm so interested in this pandemic stuff you were talking about. Maybe we'll talk about that for a second when we start. We're gonna say goodbye to Martin for a moment.
Sure.
Okay, Martin. Thanks for your help, man. Okay, and one of the reasons why we wanted to have you here was to talk about how AI-powered hiring platforms help multi-location businesses hire faster, standardize quality, and retain frontline talent. And I do think, though, that this stuff that you mentioned about like how COVID impacted people first being dispersed and then coming back into the office, I'm curious if it changed the mindset around the way Hireology actually thought about any of this stuff, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
It's an interesting question because as a software company, I mean, we've 150 employees, and everyone's expectation was work from home during that time, but our customers, they never got to work from home. Like, you can't work from home as a phlebotomist. Like, there's no work from home oil change. Like, our customers show up 6 days a week, 7 days a week, all shifts. And that's what I had explained to our company. It's like, our customers don't live this way. Like, we got to be there. Right. And anyway, we can go on.
But the other part of it, and again, tell me where I'm wrong here, right? You know this way better than I do. But it's like, if you are not having a work experience that's similar to the work experience you're expecting your customers to have, meaning going to a place, whether it's an office or not, but going to a physical location on a day-to-day basis is a regular part of your work, it's got to be hard to manage that process. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't be, I don't want to use the word empathetic because it feels like the wrong word, but you can't understand how they're feeling about that going to the work every day. And that's got to be a big part of your job. Like, I know when I was working at a big company, going to the office every day was a big part of that work experience.
Yes.
And that mattered. Yeah.
Well, it absolutely matters. I mean, there are two reasons. Number one, I saw no evidence that our folks were developing their professional capability and competencies working from home at a rate anywhere near what it did when we worked together. So just the whole getting better together thing is very real. I mean, I got to the point where I said, I don't know how to run a business where I have to schedule a Zoom meeting to ask someone a question. Like, I'm not right. So that leads to the second one. Everything was slower. Like, I can't just go grab a couple of people and get in a room and go, look, we're gonna tackle this problem. We got 20 minutes. Like, what's everyone's best idea? Let's hypothesize. Yeah, it would take half a day to schedule Zoom calls. I mean,
I was just gonna say, just to get it organized. Look, I wasn't working at a big company when the pandemic hit, right? So my frame of reference is slightly different, but I did try to imagine what it would have been like at Goldman Sachs if I couldn't just literally turn to the person next to me and say, what do you think I should do? Or how do you think we should handle this? Because you're right. If I had to schedule a Zoom call, just ask one silly question, the level of efficiency was just going to go down to zero, right?
And it did. I mean, I started my career in the late 90s, and I learned everything I learned sitting next to very good people that I could just osmosis, like,
exactly.
Oh, that's good. I really like that. Or we're answering questions that I didn't know the answer to. Like, all that all went away. So we had to bring some of that back.
I was going to say, even if you're in sales, right? You're just listening to the sales gal next to you. Even if she's not teaching you how to do sales, you're like, oh, that's the better way to say this thing, or that's the better way to introduce this thing. And again, you cannot do that over a Zoom call. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Hireology. Sorry. It's interesting to me, and hopefully you're not bothered by the fact that we had a little bit of that conversation.
Not at all.
What makes, one of the things I introduced as part of the things we want to talk about is, what is it like to hire in these sort of multi-location businesses? What makes that fundamentally harder? And I think this fits into a little bit of the conversation we're having already, fundamentally harder than it is for like a centralized corporate team on the hiring side. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Hireology is a hiring platform, the leading hiring platform for multi-location, decentralized businesses. And I would add, for whom people are the product. So if you are in an industry that relies on people to deliver the product or service, that's our core customers. So think, so we work with 40% of all car dealers in the United States, new car dealers.
Wow.
Thousands of hotel and hospitality organizations, thousands of senior living facilities, field services, HVAC, plumbing, electric. As we were, saying previously, there's no, AI is not going to unclog a toilet. You need a person to do that. And so we serve those industries. So before I answer your question, a couple of important points for your viewers.
Go for it.
We are serving industries where the supply of labor is so below the demand for that labor and will be forever. So, I didn't think AI was going to completely flip over the apple cart in terms of where the employment demand is 16 years ago when I started this company. But what I can tell you is, this is where all the employment is. I mean, today's blockbuster jobs print It's all services, healthcare, education. It's where people are doing things. And
Right.
so the supply demand imbalance, turnover rates average 70+% a year. So even if there was no labor growth, you'd still have to replace 7 out of 10 workers every year because this is a very transient workforce. Third, there is a skill or credential component to it. So you can't just show up and stick IVs in someone's arm.
Right.
You can't just show up and start, pulling a transmission out of a vehicle. You have some level of certifications and things like that.
Right.
And then fourth, the nature of how these organizations are built is different from every single company to company. So you may have an automotive group that has 50 dealerships with 50 different FEINs. They're 50 different legal entities.
Yeah,
And
could be right if they're in different states for sure, right?
Different states, half of them may be owned by the dealer's brother-in-law's cousin, and the ownership structures are different. And so a corporate multi-location entity generally has more entity consistency and ownership consistency. They can mandate all sales offices do a thing this way.
Yeah.
But if I'm running 100 different senior living facilities, they're all separately branded, or 100 different automotive dealerships. They're different vehicles, different pay plans, different rules, different incentives, and you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. So Hireology is built for the way these businesses operate, for the people that they're trying to hire, and for the business outcomes they're trying to achieve. And it's all in how the legality of hiring cross state lines flows through with these multi-location business models. And that's what we do.
So this is actually the first time where not the first time, but maybe the second or third time where I've actually thought about the United States as like not one homogeneous market. I often say that like Boston is not the same as Austin, but in this case, look, the insurance industry is different, right? Because every state has its own sort of insurance regulator. That's a different thing. But hiring, again, like you said, even for a car dealer in Boston is very different than it would be in Kentucky, right? Because even just like the cultural norms in those states and in those cities are just going to be really different.
It's more than that. So like in Virginia, to sell a car, you have to have a sales license.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my point. It's like it's just going to be completely different everywhere. So how does, and you mentioned this, right? You said Hireology's been around for 16 years, you said, yeah? Right. And you just moved offices, so good. That means things are going well. But the other question is, none of the technology that exists today in the artificial intelligence space, the machine learning stuff, sure, I'm sure you've been using that for years, but none of the sort of agentic AI, the generative AI, all this sort of new things that have happened literally like in the last 13 to 17 months didn't exist when you first conceived this. How has that changed? Not just the first mile of hiring, but every mile in between until you actually sign a contract with someone and bring them in.
Yeah, the irony in all of this is the recruiting and hiring process is the most automatable process in the company. Is the most automatable.
Like, tell me why and how, if you don't mind.
80% of recruiting is look at a resume or application, eyeball it, right? Average recruiter gives you 7 to 10 seconds. Make a quick decision. Do I put them in the further review pile or do I kick it out? All right, now I need to schedule time with this person to have a conversation. And if that goes well, hiring manager. All that is coordination. That's just looking at information, processing it, scheduling, which is what takes all the time, an initial, confirm some things for me, and then another schedule. That's 80% of the time in recruiting. You can completely automate that whole thing. The problem is there are 50 state regulatory regimes for what you can and can't do with AI and recruiting. And you can, state by state, the usual suspects are really making this hard, which, cynically, I'd say is great for our business. But like New York has their own hiring AI law. California, unsurprisingly, has their own hiring AI regs. Colorado's got theirs. Illinois, where we're located, has their own. Do you have to disclose whether AI is looking at your application? Do you have to opt into that? Can you opt out? What about accommodations for hearing or vision impaired individuals? patchwork, just like background screens. You can't automate it because
because everything's an edge condition.
A human has to do a thing at a step.
Yeah.
So you're never going to automate it. So you have to have expertise in the entire regulatory regime, state by state, for every step of the process, and automate what you can. And it's really fun to work on it, but it is not a straightforward agents are going to run recruiters out the door. That's just not going to happen.
No. So Martin and I were actually talking about this in another context earlier, and frankly, not just tonight. We've spoken about this before. But my feeling is that my appreciation for what the human brain can actually accomplish in real time is actually heightened by the fact that artificial intelligence is now getting better and better. And maybe the one thing that we do better than anything is understanding context and also remembering, like, I worked with this person at another company, so I know what their skill set is. So I know when I see their resume, I don't even have to look past anything. I can just know that, like, that person's either going to be appropriate or not be appropriate for this. But because my brain can process that stuff while it's thinking about something else, there's no way your AI can have the context for that, because they don't know what I know about that person, if that makes sense. I know it's a little bit convoluted, but that part can't be automated at all. Yeah?
Correct. I mean, if it's not in a graph database somewhere or in a file that says, you know, when you talk to Adam, make sure you move them forward. Like, it's not realistic. But what I'd say is what is realistic is to automate everything in between these steps, to say, like, you know, if you can sort batches, give me priorities, do all the scheduling for me.
Got it.
Do some initial screening and interviewing for me so that I, as a human, can save time getting that funnel winnowed down. That's where we're taking it. And it's tricky. It's really tricky. But I don't think it's the death. I mean, look, I've been in this industry 30 years. The death of the recruiter was declared Web 1.0, fast in 2012. You know, it was Monster, Career Builder, then Indeed ate those companies, and then now it's AI. It's not going to happen because humans are lazy, and they're not going to do they're never going to follow a hiring process. It'll never happen.
No.
The fixed ops manager in a car dealership is busy selling parts and service. It's just not going to happen. They need someone to push them. It's going to take a human. It will always be that way.
But also, you're presuming then as well, even if you can automate it on the recruitment side, you're presuming that the human on the other side of that equation is not going to be lazy either, and that they're going to abide by all of these new rules that you've put in place. And I love this idea that you say, like, the recruiter's not going to go. I was laughing because in my head, all I can hear is, I think it's the Mark Twain quote. What is it? The rumors of my demise have been vastly exaggerated. For 30 years.
Anyway. I mean, people have been saying recruiters, agencies, staffing companies, the internet's going to kill them. Various versions of that for 30 years. And it's not going to happen. Like, when I talk to operators, and when I say lazy, what I really mean is busy. You know, I don't have time for a new process. You know what I mean? It takes some intention to change. And I equate it to, like, look, you're not going to convince people to suddenly eat their vegetables. Like, they know it's good for them, but they're not going to, you know, you can put cheese on it, but and maybe it tastes a little bit better, but it's still eating vegetables. Like, you've got to actually do it for them. And that's the promise of AI. The reason staffing agencies and recruiting agencies, and I've run both kinds of companies in my past, work is because we do it for you. And the promise of AI and recruiting is we're going to do some things you don't like doing for you. We're going to eat your vegetables for you, and we're going to have to do it in a way that's compliant. But agents can execute the vegetable eating, but we can't make decisions about hires. We can't have comp negotiations with an agent. None of that's ever going to be possible, frankly, legally.
So one more thing before I let you go, if you don't mind.
Sure.
As AI becomes more embedded in the automation of some of these processes, right? How can employers measure whether the AI itself is actually helping them make better hiring decisions rather than just moving people through that funnel faster, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and we're all the vendors are focused on the faster funnel, and that is, you know, is our chief product officer likes to say, that bucket's this big. Faster process will save you some money, and time to fill, time to hire goes down, so your cost of vacancy goes down.
Right.
Here's the big bucket. It's the turnover retention bucket.
Yeah, that 70% turnover is amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
So that's where the money, the real transformation is if, 50% of turnover in our industries happen in the first 90 days of employment. And I would argue that is a missed expectation in the recruiting process. So
for sure,
if you can tackle the 35% turnover in the first 90 days problem with better recruiting and expectation setting, you can save a Main Street business millions of dollars a year. And so that's how my answer. That's how you're going to know if these technologies can impact the retention rate, and the first gate is 90 days. It means we've done AI has helped us better set expectations, maybe giving someone access to ask whatever questions about benefits or culture they want, do the research, better understand the role, so that they come in. They're not just expecting this to be yet just a time for money transaction. They're going in with intention. And we see that happening. And now, there's an arms race among, I'd say 4 or 5 ATS vendors right now that aren't part of a public payroll company to get this right. This is the prize.
Yeah, that retention thing is actually a super big deal. I remember not recently, but looking at statistics just around how much money. You're right. Those mismatched expectations calls where, like, in your first 3 months in the job, you're like, this is not what I came here to do. And even the employer's like, we didn't you weren't even appropriately hired to do the right thing. And it's just a complete mismatch. And that just costs tons of money. So fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you got it right on. I mean, that's, the day to quit rate is higher. Like, that should never happen. You should never have someone go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Exactly. Okay. Adam, this was super interesting. I can't believe how fast this time has already passed. Thank you so much for doing this. Good luck with the new office. And thank you again for coming and talking to us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Okay, man. Bye for now. Bye. So let us bring in our next guest today, Sachit Kamat, the Chief Product Officer at Eightfold. How are you doing today? I am doing super duper. You can hear me okay? You are perfectly clear. Thank you again for coming on and doing this. Are you standing, by the way?
No, I'm sitting down. I know it may look like the thing is a little high, but
no, that's okay. It's okay. I'm just curious. I don't mind standing desks at all. So look, we thank you for coming and doing this. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. We wanted to talk to you about how responsible AI-powered talent intelligence are just going to help companies hire better, retain stronger employees, and build more adaptive workforces, which is becoming more and more important. Before we get into the details, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about the work that Eightfold does?
Yeah, Eightfold is a global company that operates in the AI for HR tech space, right? And we support some of the world's largest companies in how they hire, retain, and effectively utilize the talent across all the strategic initiatives that these companies are undertaking. And these, our customers represent tens of trillions of dollars of market value, and we are operating in over 150 countries today.
Oh my God. Where was the company founded?
In Silicon Valley. So we're a Silicon Valley company headquartered here, but again, we operate, across the globe.
I love it. 150 countries. This is basically every country where it's necessary to operate.
Yeah. And some of our customers operate in almost every one of those geographies.
Sure. Makes perfect sense. How is AI changing the way companies approach recruiting? It's kind of a broad question, but especially when, these hiring decisions just are so important, not just to the companies themselves, but to the employees that are actually getting hired. What role is AI playing here?
Yeah, so it's important to just understand how AI has evolved, right, in recruiting.
Please.
So in the, I would say, early days, which basically takes us back maybe a little over 5 to 10 years ago, the best way that AI was being used is to go through lots of data on candidates and then effectively identify, the right sort of folks for any given role at the company, right? So going from tens of millions of people, with some of these companies have the data sets that scale to that number, down to the 50 or 100 people that matter for any given role based on their backgrounds and their unique qualifications, right? And so it was more of a way for humans to do something that was not human scalable before, right? So identify the right people and then effectively pursue them using the right tools that are available to them. What has happened now in the last couple of years is that has transformed from just the intelligence that powers the human workflows towards actually orchestrating some of these previously human workflows itself. And so now we have agents that can go much, much deeper in the recruiting workflows. They can actually interact with people like you and me. They can have conversations in real time. And you are in a world now where things that were not human scalable 2 years ago are completely human scalable now, right? Where a recruiter can potentially consider hundreds, thousands of people for any given position.
How does it change the way or the perception of a company when the employee's first interaction is with an agent, meaning an AI, agentic AI, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would say is that it depends on the industry that you operate in, right? So if you are a future forward company, if you are someone that operates in technology, for example, it's not an odd interaction at all, right? Because many technologists are used to interacting with AI on an everyday basis.
Sure.
That being said, yes, there is a little bit of human change management that comes into play depending on the types of personas that you're trying to hire, right? So we have one example of a company that is effectively operating, effectively in the transportation vertical, and they're hiring a bunch of folks that are doing, physical labor tasks, and there is definitely a little bit of training associated with what do you expect in an AI interview that customer and candidate is going to have to go through in that experience, and the product is designed in that fashion, right? So 100%, it depends on the type of person you're trying to hire. And that interaction will determine how they see the recruiting process.
And how does it change the way people use their soft skills? I mean, maybe that's the wrong question, but humans make, I always say, like, humans make visceral connections with other humans. When I meet somebody, I can feel like, am I going to get along with this person? And by almost by proxy, am I going to get along with the culture that sits inside that company? Is there a way to make the initial agentic interaction still feel like it's human in a way, so that I can see if the culture is appropriate for me as a potential hire for that firm?
What I would say is that culture is always a double-edged sword, right? Because hidden within that is also human bias, which comes into play in pretty much every interaction.
Yep.
And so the agents that I would say many companies like us have built are more focused on assessing the hard skills versus the soft skills, right?
Yep.
So the things that you can actually measure in a quantifiable way. And then the idea here is that we're simply protecting the human on the other side in the, basically the hiring team from having to go through and talk to people that effectively don't meet the hard skills, right? I think in the future, we will continue to evolve how these agents are able to assess soft skills as well. And, things will get better on that dimension. But I would say primarily right now, it's more of a mechanism where you are able to build more deeper human connections by talking to the right people that have the hard skills in the first place.
And are we suggesting that these interactions, these agentic interactions, are driven by avatar-like experiences, or is it more just an audio thing rather than an audio-visual thing as well?
It's actually a video interaction, and there are two alternatives that are available within our platform. In some cases, it is a human persona with a human face, with expressions, that where the mouth is moving, obviously, as the AI is actually speaking or listening, etc. Right? So that is available, but it's also we do have what we call the bubble, right? Which is it takes away the human aspect of it, and it's more of a situation where it's quite clearly AI that is speaking to the human on the other side.
Fair enough.
It's a video conversation, but at the same time, the client gets to pick what is the right thing for their business, because in some cases you want that human type interaction, in other cases you might not.
What type of, and you're just triggering stuff in my head, like I just can't stop thinking about the way this is going to work, because I haven't been through the experience myself, so forgive me for that. But can I give you an example of something, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
when I was in college, and this is going to date myself, but I don't really care. I was going to school in Connecticut, and I did this job that was, if you wanted to know somebody's phone number, I think you would dial 411, and it was called information. So you'd give somebody's last name, I would type it into a computer, and I would interact with that person and give them stuff. But my manager would monitor the call sometimes, to see if I was mucking around or to see if I was actually giving out good information or if I was just good at my job interaction. Is there monitoring and governance of these agents that are doing some of these initial interactions with potential hires? And is that monitoring governance being done by other agents, or is it being done by humans, or is it some hybrid version of that?
Yeah. Short answer is it's a hybrid version of that, right? So what you're referring to is the guardrails that the agent is able to operate within, right? Which is what's the context of information that it has to answer questions that might be asked by the candidate? Yeah. What are the situations where it'll decline to answer, right? So for example, if a candidate asks the question, am I going to be hired based on my responses? Right. Clearly, that's an example of a situation where the guardrails need to come into effect. So the interesting thing about the agents is that you can scale the guardrails, right? Which means that every interaction, you only have to put the guardrail in once, and it is effectively across the entire set of conversations that the agents can simultaneously have. And these agents are obviously infinitely scalable, right? So for sure, tens of thousands of interactions can happen simultaneously.
What is the output? God, I have so many questions. It's so interesting to me. I hope you don't mind. But what is the output of that interaction? So I'm not the agent, but I'm a potential hire. I'm interacting with the agent. I presume the whole thing is recorded. It's transcripted and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the hiring manager is going to want to see some kind of report about some kind of information about that person when it gets to them, right? Or whoever the first human interaction is. What is the output that gets created? How is it curated? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. What does that look like?
So the beauty of AI is that it can take a large volume of data and summarize it in a very easy to consume way, right? So there's a summarization of the conversation. There is the identification of where skills-based evidence was demonstrated within the conversation. The ability to hyperlink into a specific part of the conversation and actually see it as a human and use human judgment as well. And absolutely, there are the criteria that the corporation has laid out in terms of what they care about. Demonstration of those specific areas is something that the report makes very, very easy, right? In terms of what is collected by the agent. Of course, the entire conversation is recorded. The entire conversation is transcribed, and that is obviously available to every recruiter as they're making a determination on who to take forward.
Right. So again, I'm just going to do a little bit of math in my head, and I'm going to get some of this wrong, but just bear with me. If a recruiter can do 7 interviews a day, that's 35 a week.
Yep.
But the agents can literally do thousands of these things a week. And for large companies, the level of efficiency that an agentic AI can actually have is just like, it's unfathomable at some level.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in that context, you may have like 100 potential hires that are really good. I presume the AI, before it gets to like the next step, also after the transcripting, after watching the videos and stuff like that, also does some sort of comparison based on some criteria that this specific role has, which makes the JD, I would presume, much more relevant in this case. And because it's an agent interacting, there's probably less bias, although some bias, I would argue, but less bias in there. But what level of comparison is actually taking place, and then what output is created from that, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it depends on the criteria that the hiring manager and the recruiter actually care about, because that is configurable within the platform. But again, keep in mind that this criteria is all objective and skills based, right? In our solution. Yep. So again, going back to your initial question, right? It's not using any kind of human traits. It's not determining confidence and all the other things that we might assess in an interview. It is looking at the hard skill sets and whether those skill sets have been demonstrated at the right level. And then, yes, it is comparing various candidates in terms of who stood out the best in terms of the experiences that they were able to demonstrate, the stories that they were able to tell related to whether or not they have a particular skill, right? And that comparison can be made on the entire interview. It can be made on a specific skill. That's how you would then determine which ones you want to dig into further, and then validate the evidence, and then decide who to take forward in the process.
What kind of training is necessary for HR teams inside of these organizations that haven't had access to these tools prior? Like, what do they need to know? What are they looking for when a lot of the sort of pre-stuff that they might have done themselves before, or some of their junior staff had done before, is now being automated? So now they get all these reports that didn't exist prior. Like, what do they have to learn? What do they have to be taught so that they can get their minds around, like, okay, this is new information, maybe even better information, and now I can make better hiring decisions, but I have to know systemically how to actually use this stuff.
What we find in almost every situation is that the difficult part is not the actual technology. It's actually the
Sure.
change management associated with changing the way people operate, right? Which is
Yep.
anytime a new technology comes about, you have to change your own behavior to actually benefit from it.
Exactly.
And that change management can take a bit of time, right? We've designed these systems to be like fairly easy to use and fairly easy to, basically orchestrate, right? These agents, etc. That's not the challenge. It's more sort of how do you make sure that in any situation where you're changing the entire flow of the process, how do you identify the human powered bottlenecks that exist in that flow, and how do you address those, right? Like the fact that the agent is able to come back with screenings for 100 candidates means that the recruiter is now going to have to be very, very good at assessing which of those 100 to move forward based on what the agent is saying. There's still a bottleneck in that process that needs to be addressed. So those are the kinds of training that is necessary to benefit from the technology and to drive towards a world where hiring can happen faster with higher quality.
So I hadn't thought about this before, but the more I read about FDEs, the more I think that it's a really great business model. I'm curious if you as a firm employ this in the sense that, like you said, the change management is more important than like the technology. I agree with you. If the technology is built in the right way, it should be sort of seamless for people to use. But it's like, how do you use it in a way that's most effective? What I've found with the FDE stuff, again, in the context of, I think about this a lot in the context of Anthropic and OpenAI, and you've seen the news, so I don't need to explain that to you. But the point is there some sense of you guys doing that as well? Once you can train the people properly internally how to use all these systems and to understand what the output means. But second, you can get feedback back into your own company so you can understand, oh, we should either redesign this or we can actually add some kind of functionality because that's what the customers that we're working with actually want.
So what I would say is that the entire FD, sort of how software companies are evolving is changing dramatically, right?
Yeah.
In our world, what we're seeing is, given the concentration of customers we have is heavily Fortune 500, and I would say even high Fortune 50, right? It's a situation where every single company has a use case that is very, very unique to them.
Yeah.
And what we are now seeing is this world where software is entering the mass customization moment, right? Where every one of these companies can effectively build solutions on top of software platforms like us in a way that was not possible before, right? So the ability to use vibe coding agents, the ability to describe problems in a unique way, and then benefit from the software infrastructure that we provide. That's a reality right now, and that's a solution that we recently announced, which we call Talent Forge, which allows customers to build on top of our platform.
That's what I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about the customization, or is it customizable as well? And the example I was going to give inside of an insurance company, like hiring an actuary is not the same as hiring an insurance salesman, even though they're both working in the insurance industry. And to be fair, then hiring somebody to work at some other firm that has nothing to do with insurance is very different than it is for an insurance company. So it needs to be customizable at some level. Are you suggesting as well, if people can build on top of it, that all of the functionality that sits inside your core systems are API callable as well?
Yes, we've had APIs for a long period of time. We've had an app marketplace for a long period of time. But I think what the difference is right now is that we've re-engineered our APIs so that agents can talk to them.
That's what I want to know, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a direction that we have gone in very, very recently, and also built out protocols like MCP, which allow agents to communicate with other agents.
Yep.
And it's a world where obviously, we are building for a different user, right? Which is the agent versus the human.
How has it changed the thought process inside of your own company? Because look, again, one of the things we talk about is Salesforce, massive company, big SaaS company. But what they did was they completely rewrote all their software, Salesforce 360. All of this stuff is API callable. All of it's MCP compliant. But now it changes the way that the interaction takes place with their software as well, in the same way that you're suggesting, in the sense that a lot of the new interactivity that's going to happen with Salesforce 360 is going to be agentic as opposed to human. That's going to grow rapidly. what type of mindset change inside of Eightfold had to happen so that that was actually possible when you go to people and say, we need to make all this stuff, again, MCP compliant, but also agentic callable? How does that change the way people think about developing the platform?
In a lot of ways, as a software company, you have to be prepared to disrupt yourself, right? And that is
all the time.
The strategic conversations that were being had within our company, right? In terms of, does the UI, should we be should the UI be set in stone, or should we make it completely malleable to a new use case?
Yeah.
How do we reimagine where the value comes from, right? Is it the workflows that our customers have configured, or is it a world where effectively they can build their own capabilities using the platform that we have built, right? So those are the strategic conversations that need to play out. And then it's also a question of, how do we take it to market? How do we monetize? All of these things have to change in the world that we're in now.
It's never been a more exciting time, I think, to be building these software companies. Can I ask some more stuff if you don't mind?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How should companies measure whether AI-driven recruiting is actually giving them better candidates as opposed to just making, like, going through that funnel faster? Like, how do they do that sort of measurement?
So, we as an AI company that's been in the space had built a measure which we call our match score, right? Which is a measure of quality of the individual that folks are hiring, right? Which is the fit of the individual relative to the role that they're being hired for. That's a measure that we use in practice, right, to measure quality. But what we have been able to demonstrate is people that have higher match scores also stay longer within the role, right? There's the retention of those people tends to be higher, which is a proxy for effectively, were they a good fit for the role or not, right? Those are the kinds of measures that we bring to the table. And I would say, like, at the end of the day, recruiting can be measured in terms of time to hire, as well as, effectively the quality of hire. Quality of hire to us is that quantitative measurement that I just talked about.
Yeah, the retention thing is actually a really big deal. Are we seeing changes in the numbers related to retention based on the usage of agentic AI in the hiring space, in the sense that you should have way much more information, the match score should be higher? Because, again, hiring someone that quits in 2 days after they get hired is just a complete waste of time and money and a drag on the economy. Are we seeing that those metrics are moving in the right direction, or are they kind of static?
Where we are seeing immediate benefits is that the time that it takes for the first interview, and then obviously as a result, the time to hire has gone down dramatically, right? As a result of some of the technology. I'd say the quality metric of hire is also improving, but like the retention is still something that's going to take a while for it to mature. And we are absolutely tracking that, right? To determine whether the core, matching product that we have built versus the agentic product, what is the difference between them? We're still running that experiment as we speak.
And as this progresses, are there things that institutions or enterprises can learn from this process and all of the data that they're gathering that over time is just going to make their hiring capabilities more efficient, but also more effective, and make their retention numbers go down because of the way that they can gather data now? I'm just going to say, like, in the old days, you'd have a recruiter with a pen and a pad of paper, just like writing stuff down or checking stuff off. At some point that was digitized, but like that type of digital transformation, frankly, was not that effective. This is real transformation in the sense that you're getting all this sort of granular data about individual candidates, and you can have way more candidates as well, so way more data. Is there a way to use that data later to make the hiring process, like as it's looping around, to make the hiring process just way more effective, because now you know the types of people and candidates that you want to hire in a way that was better than you could know before?
So let me give you some real examples, right? Once you start to record and transcribe an interview conversation, that is gold when it comes to solving some real life use cases. So think about like providing feedback to the interviewer themselves, right? In terms of the coverage of the interview, give them feedback on the quality of the interview, the quality of the answers that they were able to extract, give them feedback on what things they might change, and then to be able to bubble that back up into effectively redesigning the process itself, right? Are you covering the right things in the interview, and should you redesign that? Those are things you can answer once you start to digitize and use the insights that come out of the AI.
Okay, the last thing, I have so many other things I want to talk to you about, but I'll let you go. What are there organizational changes that need to get made inside of HR departments at scale because of this new way that they're using your platform to do their recruiting?
Yeah. So, I mean, it comes down to this concept where every one of us is going to be have to be trained on how to orchestrate and manage agents in our lives, right? We are doing it every day. I'm doing it as a product leader at the moment. Recruiters are no different, right? In the sense that they're also going to have to change the way they operate, because the operational tasks are no longer the core of the job. It's more the human intelligence, building connections with the candidates, convincing someone to leave their existing job and come over to the company. Agents are not better than humans at doing that, right? No. We as humans are better at selling humans on, following through on a particular path, right? And I would say, like, we are going to have to get a lot more comfortable and have a lot more trust in, orchestrating these agents, running things at scale, evaluating the work they do, and constantly managing them, right? Like, that is a world that we're going to head into, and recruiters are going to have to learn to do that as well.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for coming and doing this, Sachit. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully you enjoyed this as much as we did. And frankly, I learned a lot today as well. And that's actually more important than anything else. Thank you again for coming to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye for now. Yeah, very nice to meet you as well. Okay, that is it today for AGTP Daily. Thank you to everybody for joining us live, and for all the people that are watching this after it gets published. Give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. It definitely helps us out. And follow us on all of our socials, on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. As always, let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like us to discuss on our upcoming shows, but also ask us questions. We're happy to answer those questions. We try to go over all of them as much as we possibly can. We love to say that we will be back tomorrow, but tomorrow is Saturday. So we'll be back on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you again to Martin Runford for some great coverage of the news at the beginning of this show. My name is Michael Waitz.